In this video, we're going to learn how to add authentication to this suggestion app that we built in the previous video. As a short recap, we could create a suggestion which will be added to the database, and then we could mark it as completed or not completed, and of course we can delete it. So we can perform all of the 4 CRUD operations: create, read, update, and delete. Now we want to make it so that only the users who create the suggestion are able to delete it. We also want to keep having all the suggestions be readable by all of the members and also by the visitors. And last but not least, we want to create an admin role which will be able to delete all of the suggestions and also mark a suggestion as completed or not completed. So first thing, we're going to go over to AppWrite and we're going to enter our project. And before we do anything, we want to go to the databases, select the suggestion database, and in the items collection, where if you remember, we keep all of our items, all of our suggestions, they have a text attribute and a completed attribute. We want to add another attribute to keep track of the owner's name. So here in the attributes, we're going to create another attribute, which is going to be a string owner name, and the size, let's make it 100. And this won't be required as we already have some suggestions that don't have an owner name. So we can create it like this. Perfect. This will allow us to add an owner name to the suggestions. So on the application, next to the suggestion, we're going to see who suggested it. This name is going to come from the GitHub Authentication. All right, next we want to change some settings on the collection level. As you remember, right now we have permissions so that anyone can create, read, update, and delete documents. But we don't want that. We want to allow anyone to read documents, not create, update, and delete. We want to allow all of the users to create documents. And last but not least, we're going to select a label of admin, which is going to be able to update and delete documents. Let's update this. And in order for the users to be able to delete their own documents, we're going to need to enable document security level. And this will allow the users to update and delete their documents. From the UI, we're only going to let them to delete their documents, but you'll see later how. Let's go to the Auth panel, and here in the settings, we want to enable GitHub because that's what we're going to use to log in. On GitHub, as you can see here, they require the app ID and the secret ID. We can turn this on, and we also get this URI, which will be the callback URI that we need to provide to GitHub. So let's copy this. And now we want to go to GitHub settings developers. You can find this in your account, then settings, developer settings, and then here OAuth apps. Here are all the apps that I created on GitHub. And we want to create a new OAuth app. Here for the name, we can put in user suggestions. For the homepage URL for now, let's get the localhost. It's localhost 5173. In a production environment, you'll change this to the URL of the website. And the callback URL is going to be the one that we have here in AppWrite settings, this URI. So we copy and paste that in, and then we register the application. Now we have the client ID that we can copy and paste here. And then by clicking this button, we can generate a new client secret. I'm going to copy this and paste it here. Just make sure that you're not sharing this client secret publicly. I'm going to remove it after the video. We can update this. And with that, we have connected AppWrite with GitHub. And as you can see here, we have GitHub enabled, which is perfect. We now have everything connected and ready to go. All that's left to do is to write the code to make it happen. So now in VS Code, we're going to add something in our AppWrite library. Here, we want to import the account from AppWrite, and also we want to export const account, which will be a new account, and we pass in our client. We're going to use this to see if we have a session. We're going to use this to log in and to log out. That's all that we need here in AppWrite.js. Let's save it. And next in app.jsx, let's import the account that we just created like that. And what we want to do is to create a state that will save the session of the user. So let's do that. We're going to create const session, that session. That's going to be use state, and by default is going to be undefined. Let me zoom in a bit so you can see better. Perfect. And now we're going to create a function, an async function, get user. And in this function, we're going to do await account.get current. This will check if we are logged in or not, and we want to store this in a new session that we can then set inside of our own session. This method get is a method that we have from app-write, and by passing in the current string, it will return the current session that's being used. Next, just to be safe, let's wrap this into a try catch block. So in case there's any error, we can catch it. Console.error, just like that. And we can use this function inside of our use effect where we get all the suggestions. We can also try to get the user first. Let's save and see what's happening. Open up the console. We get an app-write exception, user role guests, missing scope. And this is most likely because, well, we're not logged in, right? So there's no user. Let's create a button and let's try the GitHub Authentication. Going back to the code, let's create 2 more functions. I'm going to go down here. And the first one is going to be a sync function, login. And then the next one, of course, is going to be a sync function, logout. And since this is easier, let's do this first. We're going to await, account, delete session, and we want to delete the current session. Just like that. Perfect. We're going to add this as a click event on a button. Next, let's write the code for the login with GitHub. We're going to use account, create OAuth 2 session. And this requires 3 parameters. We're going to need a provider, which is going to be GitHub. And we're going to pass in the success and failure URL. So let's do GitHub. And here, I think we can put, for now, localhost. Let's try. And we save this. And in our JSX, let's have a header of some sort. We're going to add it here on top of the main. So we need to wrap the main with this first, like that. And then here, we're going to create a div with some classes. And inside this, we're going to check, do we have a session? So remember, we get this from our state. If we have a session, we're going to have some code. If we don't, we're going to have, well, some other code. So here, if we have a session, let's have a paragraph saying hello. And inside the span, we can check session.name like that. And if we don't have a session, well, we want to show a login button, right? Let me paste in the button, which also has an SVG, and it says login with GitHub. This SVG is the GitHub icon, and it has some classes to make it look good. And as you can see on the onClick, we have the login function. And back to our login state, next to the name here, we can paste in another button. That's basically the logout. We don't need ID. It's going to be onClick and it's going to call the logout function. And again, we have an SVG. Good. Let's see now what's happening. Look at that. We have a big login with GitHub button. Perfect. And it has the styling that we want. Now let's see what happens when we click it. All right, it's going to ask if we authorize this application. We can click authorize. And now we'll be redirected to our local host. Perfect. And look at that. We have the name. Hello, Florian Pop, which is perfect. And this name comes from the session. If we go back to the code here, we could do console.log session. And let's see what we have. Look, we have an object that has all the information about the user. Awesome. And with this, the tutorial is over. Congratulations. Nah, just kidding. We still have things to do. And one of the things is let's just have some kind of a header here because it just looks ugly. So back to the code inside of our main. I'm going to paste in a heading with some classes saying project suggestion and then a paragraph that will say what this is about. Let's go back. Look at that. Good. I still don't like the fact that we have a lot of spacing. So let's see. Look at that. Margin top 20. I think just 4, it's all right. Perfect. And last but not least, as you can see, this button is kind of weirdly aligned with the text. So let's go back here where we have the paragraph. And here we want to add flex, text, LG, item center, and gap 2. Let's see. Look at that. How beautiful it is now. Perfect. We can close the console for now. And let's see, does the logout button work? That didn't seem to work. We had to refresh. Why is that? Let's look at the logout. Yeah, so what's happening here is that we are using the account delete session, but we're not refetching the user session. So what we can do is let's call the getUser function that we created above, right? And this will recall the count.get function and we'll have the new session updated. So let's log in. And since we already approved the app, it won't ask for a permission again. It will just work. And then when we log out, that's weird. Maybe instead of getting the user there, Let's try simplifying. Just set session to undefined. Let's go back here, refresh, log in again, and log out. All right, good. Apparently this is easier. I'm not sure why that didn't work. If you know, let me know in the comments. But that's perfect. Now we have working login and logout. Good. Now let's see what happens since we increased our security in the database. Let's see what happens when we try to add a new suggestion. By the way, ignore the console. We have that console log. Let me remove it just so we keep things clean. Good. So new suggestion, send. Look at that. The current user is not authorized to perform the requested action. Ooh, that's interesting. So even though from the front end, we can kind of press the button, it won't pass in the database because we have protection there. So now let's log in and let's try now to add a new suggestion and send. And look at that. Now the suggestion is passed. Perfect. Let's see what we have here in the documents. As you can see, the owner name is null, even for our latest document. And that's because we're not passing the owner name. So go back here where we add the suggestion and we need to make a few adjustments. So first here in the check, if you remember, we checked to see if we have a suggestion text. Also want to check if we have a session. If we don't want to trigger this create document function. And if we do have a session, then let's set the owner name to be the session name because we already have the name here. As you can see, Florian Pop, that comes from GitHub, and that's what we want. Perfect. Let's save and go back here and then try another suggestion, send. Now let's see now, we have 5 documents. Do we have an owner? Yeah, look at that. So the 5th document here, well, actually the first one is going to be Florian Pop. It has an owner. And the next one, well, it doesn't have an owner. So let's go now and add the owner here inside our application. Let's scroll down to where we have the loop. Yeah, the map here, good. We have the li. And inside of the li, we have the check to add the check mark if it's completed. And next to it, we can create a paragraph that's going to hold the text. And next to it, we're going to create a strong tag that will show the suggestion dot owner name, like that. Let's see. Look at that. This one has an owner name, so it pops up here. Let's fix a few things. We want to have colon. After that, good, save, perfect. But now, as you can see, well, these kind of look weird because they don't have an owner. So what we can do is have a check. Do we have an owner? If we do, we want the suggestion owner to show like that. Otherwise, let's just put no name, like, I don't know, or unnamed, or no user, whatever you want. Typically, this shouldn't happen starting now because all of the users who log in should have a name. But in case they don't have on GitHub, well, we'll have the no name here. Good, perfect. Next, we're going to work on the update and delete functionality, and we're only going to allow users who created the suggestions to also delete them. If we check the console now, we're going to see that if we click delete, it will say that the current user is not authorized to perform this requested action because we wanted to delete a suggestion from another member. If we click delete on our own suggestion, however, it will work. So that's good. We have protection on the database side. We just want to make sure that in the UI, we don't see the delete buttons if the users can delete the suggestion. So let's add back the suggestion just so we can see it. And the way we're going to do this is let's check the documents. If we check the documents here, you'll see that we have a permission array. And this permissions array has read, update, and delete. And inside, it says the user that is able to read, update, and delete this document. So we're going to loop over this array and we're going to check if we have this string that contains the ID of the current session, which means the ID of the user that's logged in. So let's go in the code and we go down to the delete button, this one. And here we want to see suggestion.permissions like this. If it includes, and we're going to create the string with delete parentheses and user. We also need the double quotes here. And if the user is equal with a session dot $ID. And since we sometimes don't have a session, let's just add this to make sure we don't have an error. So if this is true, if the permissions includes this string, we want to add the button Otherwise, we want null. So let's copy this, paste it inside here, and let's look here, refresh. Okay, suggestion permissions include, it's not a function because this is includes, like that. And look at that now. We don't have the delete button on the suggestions that are not ours, but we'll still have it on our suggestions, and it's still working. So let's add back the suggestion, just so we can have it. Perfect. This is the behavior that we want. Now, in theory, you could update the suggestion because we allow it in the database. But since we're sneaky, we can hide the check mark and only show it for the admins. But we haven't done anything to add an admin to the platform. So let's go back to AppWrite, and inside of the project, let's go to auth. And here for my username, we're going to scroll down and we have here labels, and we can add myself as an admin. Click update. And now basically, since if we go to the database, to the collection, in the settings, if you remember, we have this. Now as an admin, I should be able to update and delete all of the suggestions. So let's see. It allows me. I still can't delete it because we didn't add it to the UI. So let's do that. If we go to the UI, around the input, which is the checkbox, we want to see if on the session labels, we have the admin flag. If we go up here and do again, console.log session, let's see what we have on it. If we open it, look at that. We have a labels array with the key admin. So now if we go down here, we kind of need to do the same thing we did for the delete button. So basically we want to check on the session, if we have one, do we have the labels, which includes the admin keyword? If we do, I want you to show me the checkbox. Otherwise, just show me null. And then we can paste this in like that. If we refresh, as you can see, we have the checkboxes. But if we go here to my username again and remove the admin flag, and now if we refresh, look at that. We don't have the checkbox anymore. And we only have the delete here because we have that check to see if we have the delete string. As you can see, the delete doesn't look too good. So let's go back here and on the button, and we do ML auto like that. Yeah, look at that. Perfect. Let me add back the admin flag so we can test the last functionality. Basically, what we want is when we have the admin role, we also want to be able to delete. But right now, we don't do that check. So here, where we check for the delete user ID, we also want to check if we have the session labels, pretty much what we have here. So let me just copy it. So basically, the admin will be able to change the suggestion, and also the admin will be able to delete the suggestion. And only the user who created the suggestion will be able to delete it. Again, from the database, from the rules we have, in theory, the user could also update it, but we're sneaky and we don't want to allow it. I don't like how these look now if we have both of them. So maybe we can remove the margin left here, and also on the input, where is it? This one, like that. And we can wrap this inside of a div, both the checkbox and the button. And then this div can have a class name of auto. Let's see how it looks. Good. And we can use the flexbox trick, item center, and also gap of 2. And then everything will be Gucci. We should only see the delete button on this one. And if we're admin, we see everything. And everything should be working properly. Let's check. Can we toggle it? Perfect. Can we toggle this? Awesome. Super duper cool. One last thing that I would like to add, and this is like a bonus, is we wouldn't really want to allow users to just spam with suggestions over and over and over again. So what we can do is let's create a blocked state. So here we can go here and we can create a blocked state, set block. By default, this state is going to be false. And the way we're going to use it is on the text area. We scroll down here, we have the text area. As you can see, we have the classes for the disabled state, but we're not disabling it. So we can say disabled is going to be this blocked state. And what we can also do is that on the placeholder, we can have a ternary like this. And we can say something like, is it blocked? If it's blocked, we want to say, wait for 15 seconds. Otherwise, enter your suggestion like that. So by default, it's not blocked. Let's see if we go back here and we set blocked to true, then it will say wait for 15 seconds. And also you can see that this not allowed cursor. Perfect. So how we're going to do it? So basically the way we're going to make this work is that whenever we add a suggestion, we're going to also check to make sure that it's not blocked. And here, after we reset the suggestion text, we can also set the blocked to be true like that. Oops, here should be an end. Perfect. And this will make it so that whenever we send, look at that. It's going to be blocked, not doing anything for 15 seconds. So let's do that. We're going to set a timeout that will run a function after 15,000 milliseconds or 15 seconds that will set blocked back to false. And now we go here. Let's refresh. New suggestion, probably the last one. If we click send, look at that. We have 15 seconds. And if we wait 15 seconds, boom, look at that. We can now add another suggestion. Let's remove all of these to keep it clean. And with this, you now have a suggestion app that performs all of the 4 CRUD operations, create, read, update, and delete, but it's protected dependent on the user. And also we have GitHub Authentication. You can see how easy that was to add using AppWrite, just a couple of minutes. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know in the comments if you did, and let me know what I should make next. I'm thinking probably something with real time, but I'm looking for your suggestion. I'll see you in the next one.